All right, folks, we know that this financial system is due to be updated, and in today's video, we're going to talk about the XRP tipping point and the tipping point for the broader financial system that is being reset, restructured, revalued. And I think that it's going to be a beautiful thing if you are stacking the underlying assets that are going to run the new system. More on that later. I'm going to make this video short, sweet, straight to the point. I got 2 data points, and then I want to get to this video, which is actually Ripple once again sitting at the table. Some sort of fireside chat with the Bank of International Settlements, a representative from Ripple, and then someone from Visa as well. 2 data points, and then we're going to get to the video real quick for you guys. Everything can be found at my website, zachrector.com, and I appreciate all the support. Right on into it, folks. So we're watching the crazy stuff take place like this. The solar cycle will start peaking this year, a nearly periodic 11-year change in the sun's activity measured in terms of variations in the number of observed sunspots on the sun's surface, which coincides 80% with the time with all political and economic turning points in history. This tweet from Ben Rickard. And this is after yesterday reported that the sun ejected the 3rd X-class solar flare within 24 hours. Now, it was crazy. We started out the morning, cell phones were down, AT&T was down. It was wild, and they actually didn't blame that on the flare. I think that they said that there was some disruptions to some networks, but there was some other issue with the AT&T cell phone towers. Then we had this flare 3 X-class flares, this one coming in at 6.37, the most powerful flare of the current cycle. And as Ben Rickard highlights here, whatever this is, this alignment, it's coinciding right where we've seen ourselves so many times in history, so many data points to reflect that. And it's up to us to make sure that we're positioned accordingly. Now, according to the European Central Bank, there's no need to be positioned in Bitcoin because they say that Bitcoin has failed to become a global decentralized digital currency, instead falling victim to fraud and manipulation. The recent approval of an ETF doesn't change the fact that Bitcoin is costly, slow, and inconvenient, argues the European Central Bank. Now, what I find funny about this is the European Central Bank themselves just reported a first annual loss for the first time in nearly 2 decades. So while they want to tout that Bitcoin is a failure, they need to take a good hard look in the mirror, right? Of course, these central banks can never fail. They just print more money, right? No problem to be had. And as I titled this video, the XRP tipping point, the new financial system tipping point, this is what we find ourselves in the middle of right now. And the problem is massive for these banks, not just on the central banks, but even the commercial banks within the United States. We talk about their balance sheets. We talk about their unrealized losses, trillions of dollars worth of losses, and a real estate reset. We talk about this equities market due for a historical correction, and everything aligns with where we've been at in the past. How does this play out going forward? I don't need to know the exact day. I don't need to know the exact amount that we're going to correct by. Are we only going to correct by 20%? Are we going to see a 50% crash? Great financial crash, .com bubble crash, 87 market crash. Well, all of the data points lead us back to that. That's yet to be seen. But what happens on the other side of this, and how do we position ourselves accordingly? Obviously, we want to be prepped out for the blackout, for the solar flare, for the cyber attack. And Marco Rubio let us know yesterday that China's cyber attack is going to be 100 times more powerful than these little flares. And we're going to see them go after our banks, our energy, our internet, and our banks. Everything. Every aspect of our lives is going to be shut down. And I'm sure that we need to sign a bigger defense spending bill and bail somebody out and go send more money to some country based off that threat. So this is, once again, they're getting us hyped up. They're getting us excited. And we are going to be going through a year of transition, disruption, and chaos. This is why we've talked about staying focused, protecting your energy, and making sure that every single day you're taking productive action and steps to execute your objectives, not just for this year, but for this moment in time. How can we maximize this opportunity and tell our children and our grandchildren that during this transfer of wealth, we made sure to get our family and our businesses on the right side? I want you to listen in. This is once again Ripple, always sitting at a table, sitting in a room that matters. And here they are with the Bank of International Settlements and Visa. I want you to listen in on this clip. This is pretty special right here, folks. Take a listen.
kind of defining factor of networks is that the more things are connected, the more value there is to the network. So when we think about kind of transitioning one network to another network, there's going to be some type of critical mass and some kind of tipping point and threshold at which there is more value in the new network over the old network. And I think that that's kind of what we're all kind of circling around, is in different business contexts. I think we understand that there's desirability. The G20 was mentioned. That's a huge motivation and desirability for these type of payments to improve. I think it was mentioned that the technical feasibility of most of these things has been proven, both in the public and the private space. And now it's all about the kind of business viability. So as more and more businesses become viable in this space, I think that'll pull in more actors, it'll pull in more value. And when these new type of networks start to hit that threshold, I think we're going to hit that tipping point, and then things will just kind of happen somewhat naturally from there. So I'm definitely up. Kind of defining factor of networks is that the more things are...
And for me, the tipping point is the realization among the masses that XRP is a new world reserve currency, right? Now, everybody criticizes us and they call us crazy for treating it like such a thing. But I think that we've had this conversation about how Bitcoin gets a piece of this pie, right? Some would argue that Bitcoin is going to be a world reserve currency. Obviously, the European Central Bank doesn't feel that way, right? But there are some people that are going to use Bitcoin as a means of settlement for transactions like a reserve currency, and then also as a store of value. There's two aspects to reserve currency: settling up transactions and then store of value. Bitcoin in and of itself has value, at least in the beholders, and they're parking value in it, but they're not tokenizing anything on that blockchain, right? Versus a ledger like XRP, which is set to get all these DeFi capabilities now. You look at XLM finally getting smart contracts. These networks get tokenized. They have contracts on them where value gets put on the chain. Not only is value held in the underlying token, the native token on the chain, but then other tokens get put on the chain that represent other real-world assets. There isn't really set to be any of that happening on Bitcoin. Obviously, there's some ordinals. That's kind of messed up the Bitcoin network in a sense. And so you can't really tokenize and put value on Bitcoin. Now, people are going to use it for transactions, and people are going to store value in Bitcoin itself. So one could argue that it is, somewhat of a successful reserve currency to an extent. I don't think that it's going to be able to achieve and go as far as an XRP, because as I mentioned, we have tokenization that will be happening on the XRP ledger as well. And that value then flows using the XRP gas token on the network. And so I believe that the tipping point is the masses realizing that this system goes to backing of commodities and real value. You're talking gold, silver, and other commodities that actually run the world. And then you're also talking about XRP digital currencies as well that can serve as a commodity with value and a currency for transactions. And so as a neutral bridge currency, I don't think that there's any other asset that's better positioned than XRP to serve this role. Are we going to be the number one reserve currency? We're still a long ways away from that, right? But even if we can just be in the conversation, 99.9% of crypto is nowhere near that conversation. Would be laughed off the stage if they talked about their little crypto project being a reserve currency. Ripple doesn't get laughed off the stage. In fact, they keep on getting invited to the stage with the Bank for International Settlements and with Visa and all the biggest players in the world. So this is what I continue to see. Nothing has changed. Our fundamentals continue to get better, and our vision and our purpose just continues to get clearer. So if you're with me, please like our content. Please share it out far and wide. Everything can be found at my website, and I appreciate everyone's support so much. We got more content coming your way, so stay tuned for more. I am your host, Zach Rector. I really appreciate all of the love and support. If you want to support the channel, just remember that you can start by smashing that thumbs up for me, sharing this content far and wide, and everything else is at my website.